It's a gift, really, to be where I am right now. I wouldn't give nothing for that journey now, because though it has pain with it, that I'm feeling now in a way that's going to be about getting ultimate closure, because she's gone and it's all done now. It's really final. Even though I knew it would never change in life, it's final. So now I embark on the journey to take the steps to my own closure. I feel blessed that I've always felt my emotions. Now, and even when I was a kid and a teen in my early 20s, and those emotions were killing me every day. I couldn't handle them, and I didn't know how to cope with them. It wasn't my fault, and it wasn't your fault. And what parents do to us when they abuse us, and when they are narcissistic and beyond, and when they are narcissistic personalities or BPD, comorbid NPD, and when they really don't have the capacity to give you what you need in your childhood, what I needed in my childhood, it was emotionally totally absent. Could I get a favorite toy that I wanted at Christmas? Oh yeah. Just like right now, apparently I was included in the will after it's all said and done to whatever. Could be $1.50, I don't know. And so that's the only reason that I got to find out that my mother died 6 weeks ago. My mother didn't even care enough about herself to know how much I cared, in spite of everything. And that's the part right now that is the grief that I need to feel, to put to rest, finally, with finality. And I'll go to the grave and I will say everything I wanted to say that she could never hear, because guess what? I'm getting a little sense of it now for the first time. My mother's free from her trauma. And I have known my father's spirit to be around me and to be warm. He was an awfully abusive man to me. She wasn't much of a mother to me. Again, remember the emotional, the lack, the no empathy, the no connection, the trauma bond, which I did break. What I'm feeling right now is the finality of the reality. It's so predictable, too. I'm just that real and I'm just that open. And I want to show you that if you do your work, it matters. And I want to show you that no matter when things hurt, you can find your own closure. You can learn how to be there for you, as I'm being here for me right now. But I want to share that because I want to pay forward the blessed gift of all my healing, recovery, and hard work. I hate to say it, because in the absence of their ability to love or to cope with my wanting to be real with emotions, money became the currency, unquote, love, unquote. It really pales in comparison to the reality of the finality here. But I'm a big enough person, no pun intended, to admit that I always cared about these people. So I sit here today with all that I'm feeling and all that I still need to process, which I'm fine with. But I'm strong, and I've been blessed to be strong. And I can only say in my reference that I'm so grateful to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and the glory goes to God, because I've had to be so damn strong. And make no mistake about it, I'm being vulnerable here, but I'm strong. Because whether I'm feeling pain or the freedom, the paradoxical experience of this, it's all okay, because it is what it is. And I knew that when she passed away, I didn't know how it hurts the way I found out. Of course it does. It's okay, it's just so damn final. It's what I've dedicated my life to. The message in all my work is focus on you, do for you, take care of yourself, get away from them, go to therapy, go through the pain and the agony, and it is no easy recovery for people with codependency, for people that might also, as I got labeled with, I don't have it anymore, but they might have BPD, and it's trauma on top of trauma. But if you set your mind to it, and you single-mindedly, determinedly focus on going to therapy, you can get through it. And what I'm showing you today, as I share this processing and what happened, it's not weakness. I'm fine. I'm not crumbling. I'm not falling apart. I'm healing. So the legacy of this for me, and believe me, I still feel that freedom, and the grief keeps coming and going, and it will for a time, is that there was so much absent and no closure. And so I'm working on my own closure now. Cluster Bs don't know how to do anything but punish. They're closed off, they're walled off. My mother, when I asked my mother my late mother, when I asked her why she didn't tell me my father died till 8 months later, she wasn't going to. Except for that late aunt of mine, who was a really decent human being, by the way. She kept at my mother that I had a right to know. It's the only reason she told me. I asked her why she didn't tell me before. Or why I couldn't go to the funeral, be part of any of that. And my mother said, like a typical narc, really, I just didn't want to deal with you. I just didn't want to have to deal with you. But it's code for you'd be emotional. Narcissists disdain that. They really do. So, I didn't get to go to my father's funeral. I wasn't included in my mother's, obviously. And I knew I wouldn't be. And I would have liked to have been. And when my grandmother died when I was 7, it was a sanitized deal. My mother didn't come home that night, the only night she was never home when I was a kid. And she was dealing with her mother's death. Whatever that might have been like for her, I don't know. And then my father came and told us that, told him first, I think, the sibling, I don't know, who was only 4, because I was 7, and told me that my grandmother died, or probably said and went to heaven or something, I don't know. And I didn't know, really, when you're 7, what do you really take in about that? But what I do know is, and what I would know, as I got to be 8, 9, 10, etc., was that after my grandmother died when I was 7, it's like she never existed. And I always felt that because I always cared, damn it. I always was in my emotions. And not just mine to the exclusion, but nobody else had any. Nobody else wanted to be there with me, right? And it's like now, too. In the family of origin, of course, and I know that. I don't understand why people vilify him. I'm hurting pretty bad right now, on and off, but my mother wasn't capable of anything else. So I forgive her even for this. And I'm starting to feel it in a different way right now, in a spiritual sense, because I know I'm going to make contact with my mother. I know she's hearing me right now. I believe in that. I don't understand it. But maybe now, when her soul is free, and she's out of all the trauma of her life, and why she was a BPD, NPD, and why she was so closed and so full of contempt and self-hatred and hatred for me. I got the brunt of it, but I don't know what to go into. I don't know what the relationship was like. I mean, I just know that when I left home at 17, she felt abandoned. My mother did. I never meant to abandon my mother. So see if you can do your healing and recovery work. Then you can be in the paradox of the finality when life forces a closure that is more final when a person passes away, that we have no control over. They had choices they could have made differently, but none of them were going to do it. So I'm left with what it is, and I know how I feel about it, but I don't hate anybody. I don't blame anybody. I don't have any harshness for. I can just feel my sadness that my mother, I lost out on something. All my life I lost out on so much with my mother and my father. And then my brother. Because though I thought doors were closed and stuff, it's not me. I know they're not going to ever want to know me. Because they're in the whole line of betrayal and intergenerational trauma. But, so you know, I don't have any anger. I don't have any vilification to give. And I believe this is where it would benefit everyone to get to where you can feel your emotions in these times and you can deal with it. Even though it really hurts, it's hurting me right now for sure. But I'm okay. Because I can feel free 1 minute and then this comes up. Because it's just the process of what is right now. I love it, my mother. It was a trauma bond. There was never a connection. But from the beginning of our lives, we're wired to need and to love and to have to bond. And I'm not grieving that part now. I finished that part, but in the finality of it all. Life is short, you know. And when you can make the changes in your life that I made in mine, so that I can be open to this moment fully, and the experience of what it all is and all the ramifications of it. Whew. At the end of the day, she didn't deserve it. She didn't earn it. We had a trauma bond. There was no emotional anything between us, but I loved her. And I never got to experience that with her, and it never came back to me. I'm okay with the fact that I always loved her. That I always wished that she could have taken that in. And we could have shared that. Nobody ever waved goodbye. Oh, where did I live? I can't remember the year. But the last time I saw my mother, and then the finality of finding your own closure sets in, and that's my process now. So that's what it is. But the last time I went, I had lunch with her. So that was after the no contact time, yes, because it was after the 8 months went by and she didn't tell me about my father's death, and then there was a bit of contact there, but again, nothing changed, you know, and I didn't expect it would. Maybe I had a bit of false hope at that point that since my father was gone, maybe something would open, maybe we could be friends. We would talk a little. She would tell me, she would call me and tell me she just want, or I'd call her and say, how are you? And because she was a grieving widow, and I cared about that too. And she said, I'm just sitting here waiting to die. And that was, 23 years ago or something. So that's what she would say. And I would just say to her, you should go and talk to someone about that. Which, of course, they didn't believe in that. So the reality of this is that we met for lunch one day. let me just think for a minute. 98, but might have been around 2000. Don't think it was 2001, 99, 2000, something like that. So we're talking 21 years ago, 20 years ago, 22 years ago, and all the time in between. I wanted to see her again. Never would see her again. There was no way to cross the chasm. So in the mall that day, we met for lunch at this restaurant. There was a mall near it. I had to order something easy to swallow because I was rife with anxiety and panic to be around her. So we had a lunch. No emotions were shared, it was just the way it was. And that was hard for me. And then she said, "You want to go over to the mall?" And then we spent a few more hours together. We both knew it was the last time we were going to see each other. She made it that way. Didn't have any say in that, but she knew. Damn, she just couldn't open any door. So we went around the mall. She's trying to buy me the mall. I don't know what that means. I don't know. Anyway, there's a bookstore in there. I love books. Read a shit ton of books in my life about just, everything you could think of, probably. Well, not science and math, but anyway, she's trying to buy me all these books. Do you want, buy some books? You want books? I want to buy you books. Some of those books are on the bottom shelf of that shelf over there. So I got a lot of books that day. Heavy to carry, but they were in a cart. And then we went from there to some different stores, and same thing in every store. And wanted to buy me shit. I wanted her to open to me. Wanted to know her. I wanted her to receive my care. She was doing all she knew how to do. Her love was money. The currency was money. I'll buy you this, I'll buy you that. I didn't want it, but I took it. And then we went into this one other store. Because the mall only had so many different things, And I wasn't wanting, but she is what she wanted to do. So awkward. It was so painful for me. And so now we're in this weird store with, I don't know what's in there. It's there's pots, there's pans, there's barbecues. I don't know what kind of a store it was. I don't even know what they were anymore because things didn't matter to me. And I remember I threw it out some years ago, but I hardly ever barbecued. But from that one store, because it wasn't really anything I wanted or needed, but she needed to buy me something. So I got these barbecue tong things and something else and pots and pans, I think. To this day, like, my partner does the best she can with this stuff with me. Just kind of keep it to myself, because she has her stuff in the kitchen. I can't handle the kitchen. I go in the kitchen, I can do it. It's not like I'm this emotional. I'm this emotional because of the reason I'm doing the video. And so I just wanted to share. The last thing she's buying me stuff in there. I don't even want anything. And then, so I've got this cart, heap full of stuff she bought me. And, neither one of us wanted to stop walking around that mall. Her Well, you know, she had another reason too, right? But she wouldn't show any emotion, but I think she might have had a little bit that day because she didn't want that time to end any more than I did. But then it came time it had to end. And I needed to go and she needed to go. And it's all part of the closure now. But so there were phone, you know, cabs, direct lines, phones to cabs. And she was going in a different direction, and so she called a different cab company. And I called another cab company, and though we only lived 20 minutes apart or 15 minutes apart at that time, she then said, so she called her cab and I called my cab. And it was a little bit of just, you know, stranger chit-chat type thing. And I could hardly hold my emotions in. And I was really trying hard, but I was really, you know, lip quivering, something was happening. I don't remember if I got one of those sort of cold standoffish hugs or not. I don't remember. It's too bad. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. And then we were waiting for the cabs. And it might have been 5 minutes, 7 minutes, but it seemed like hours. Because I couldn't hold my emotion in much longer. And I looked at her, and I could see just a little twinge of emotion. You know, I put that in the past a long time ago, but of course it would come right back. It would come up today, right now, under these circumstances. But so I was like, oh God, please let her cab come first. And it did, because I wanted to be there to the very last second I could be there, and I wanted to have those moments alone with myself before my cab came and watch her go. And actually, that day we did wave goodbye. So that's it, isn't it? She did wave goodbye from the cab, and I think she was feeling something, but probably struggling to not. And not to the depth that I was, I'm not trying to say that. And then, yeah, the cab drove out of sight, and now I'm really starting to fall apart. In public, doesn't matter. I was on the balcony earlier. I had to talk to somebody at my door earlier, bawling. I don't care. So, yeah, she was gone, and I knew it was the last time I was going to see her ever, and it was. So I'm feeling that in a different way today, right? But as soon as my cab came, which was only a couple minutes after she was gone, out of sight, and yeah, we did exchange a wave goodbye. I have to hang on to that, right? As soon as I got in the cab, I could hardly talk. I was blubbering, I was crying, trying to give the guy my address. He's like, excuse me, and I'm like, I'm sorry. And I was really crying, deep, deep, deep crying. And so funny, I think I asked him for a pen and paper, wrote down my address, and he started driving. I'm like, no, I'm fine, never mind me. So yeah, it's not that nobody didn't wave goodbye. It just wasn't supposed to be that goodbye.